President Joe Biden's White House administration recently announced what is believed to be, by some organizations, to be the very first national strategy to address the issue of anti-Semitism, an issue that many members of Metro Atlanta's thriving and very expansive Jewish community has experienced firsthand. We are joined today by Dov Wilker, who is the regional director based here in Atlanta of the American Jewish Committee. And when President Biden announced this, obviously it has been an issue that we'll talk about here in Metro Atlanta and most recently in the General Assembly. What was your reaction to his plan and his announcement?
Thank you so much for having me on to talk about this important topic. As I was listening to the president's remarks and listening to the presentation and the rollout of the strategy, all I could do was get emotion. I mean, the idea that parents and grandparents and relatives of friends of mine who were Holocaust survivors, how would they have reacted to hear the president talk about the anti-Semitism the way that he did? This is such an important topic, not just to the Jewish community, but to the citizens of our country. Anti-Semitism is the oldest form of hatred, and it is a terrible virus that we're seeing exploding in our country today. And so it was really a sense of pride that I felt, and sort of heartfelt appreciation to the president for his leadership on this important issue.
So this program is officially known, if I'm not mistaken, as the U.S. National Strategy to counter anti-Semitism. What exactly does this plan do?
This national strategy truly is the first of its kind, bringing together all of the government institutions for 100 specific actions that federal agencies can take, and 100 more that institutions like universities and local governments can tackle. So together, you have nearly 200 actions that are suggested by the White House as an effort to combat anti-Semitism.
Isn't this simply another way of throwing money at a problem that is more societal in nature? What are all of these hundreds of millions of dollars going to accomplish?
So this is not just another effort that we're throwing money at. On the one hand, money is, yes, going to be spent. Safety is a top priority as a part of this plan. I mean, the president wants to boost federal funding to help Jewish institutions to offset the costs of bolstering their physical security. There is not a single Jewish institution in Metro Atlanta that does not have security needs. And the amount that is supported through the nonprofit security grant is not enough. Secondly, it's going to provide resources to all of these institutions to be able to ensure that they better understand who the Jewish people are and what we have experienced in terms of anti-Semitism. So while, yes, the money will be spent, it is money well spent as an effort to tackle these societal issues that we are facing. There's an effort through the Department of Education. There's an effort through online social media companies, right? We've got the security aspects of it. So when you bring all of these together, what we are realizing is that we can make a difference, and that it's not just individuals, but society as a whole, and through the government, that will support societal efforts to disrupt anti-Semitism.
In terms of security, what you just mentioned, you said that there are really no Jewish institutions or centers here in Metro Atlanta that do not have security concerns. We are all familiar with the Marcus Center for Continuing Jewish Studies. What are some other organizations that are here in Metro Atlanta that could be the beneficiary of these taxpayer-supported security measures?
So we have a vibrant Jewish community here in Atlanta, comprised of over 100 organizations. of those 100 organizations, you have 35 synagogues that have security needs. You've got Jewish day schools. You've got the Marcus Jewish Community Center. You have the Jewish Federation and the Bremen Museum. You have the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival, which increases their security at the theaters where the festival takes place. You've got the Neranana, formerly known as the Jewish Music Festival, that hosts Jewish music in various venues. So it's not just about the physical aspects of my own office as well, American Jewish Committee, right? We have additional security needs because we are a Jewish organization. You have entities that create programming off-site. Every time we at American Jewish Committee host a program, we have to spend money on additional security, no matter where we are, because of the need for security that we feel so that our attendees can feel protected by law enforcement.
Most recently, earlier this year, we were all, and we covered this issue extensively on Atlanta News First when State Representative Esther Panetich from Sandy Springs Dunwoody community, her driveway and neighborhood were littered with a number of anti-Semitic pamphlets. And while there was a very strong show of support for her on the floor of the state capitol earlier this year in January, ultimately a bill that would have addressed the issue of anti-Semitism here in Georgia did not pass the Georgia General Assembly. Tell me why you think that was.
Well, it was very disappointing that HB 30 and then HB 144 didn't get a floor vote in the Senate and ultimately didn't get back to the House to be passed and ultimately signed by the governor. The truth is, we are in the middle of a 2-year legislative session, so the issue is not dead. There is still an opportunity for the state of Georgia to add a definition of anti-Semitism into the code to support law enforcement as they seek to address issues of anti-Semitism. See, anti-Semitism is not a very singular issue. It is diverse. We see anti-Semitism come from the radical left. We see it from the far right. We experience it from religious extremism. So it's something that is complicated. And when things are complicated, it's important that we talk through it and gain an understanding of what it is. And so our hope, and also I should mention that the governor just returned from a trip in Israel where he visited Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial Museum. And I understand also that Prime Minister Netanyahu asked the governor specifically about this bill to adopt the definition of anti-Semitism. And our hope is that the legislature will do the right thing and adopt this definition of anti-Semitism into the Georgia Code.
If I remember correctly, one of the hangups was actually coming up with a universally or accepted bipartisan approved definition of what anti-Semitism is. From your standpoint, give our viewers your definition of anti-Semitism.
So we support the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's working definition of anti-Semitism. In fact, the White House embraced that definition as a part of its plan. So for us, there was no question. This is the gold standard for defining anti-Semitism, because it's not just about defining anti-Semitism. It's about providing examples to law enforcement and to elected officials and to others to understand the complexity that anti-Semitism is. So we believe that this, what is called the IRA definition, is what we have suggested for the legislation and what we really do hope will pass, especially now that it has been embraced by both Republican and Democratic presidents and utilized by the past 4 administrations.
Give us some other examples of anti-Semitism. We all, when we hear of an anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic flyer being thrown in someone's neighborhood, you have the image of the swastika, white nationalism, et cetera, et cetera. But one thing you said earlier that I found very interesting, you see examples of anti-Semitism from the far left. Give us some different examples of anti-Semitism.
So anti-Semitism manifests in a number of ways. And one of the suggestions that I have for the audience is to visit ajc.org/translate-hate, which is a glossary of anti-Semitic terms. But to share some examples of anti-Semitism, just last week, we saw Elon Musk comparing George Soros to Magneto, both Holocaust survivors, both powerful, both finding ways. The insinuendo there was that he's trying to destroy the world based off of his values and ideals, right? We see it in the way that people attack Israel, calling Israel a racist state or suggesting that Israel has no right to exist. We see anti-Semitism coming from within the Christian church. When we speak about the Jews being, when people speak about the Jews being responsible for the killing of Jesus, that is itself anti-Semitism. So those are just 3 examples, but I can go on and on. The flyers that you shared were just distributed again last night or just the other day in Roswell, Georgia. And that had a message that tied Jews to the LGBTQ community. There are flyers that talk about the Jewish control of the medical industry and of spreading COVID. We see stereotypes of Jews controlling Wall Street and both being communist and capitalist, trying to take the money and keep all of the money. And so what we are seeing is that almost in every way, there are stereotypes related to Jews. Even the notion of the term scapegoat is anti-Semitic, because what was a scapegoat? Scapegoat comes from the Bible, from the Old Testament. And the scapegoat was sent away as a way to banish all of your sins. So the very notion of scapegoating is an anti-Semitic term. And what we are trying to do is find ways to educate people to understand why some of those issues are anti-Semitic, why those examples create anxiety, why people attack Jews for what takes place in Israel. You know, today, on May 30th, is the beginning of the trial for the person who perpetuated the massacre at the Tree of Life synagogues in Pittsburgh. 5 years later, that individual went into the synagogue because of their support for immigrants. Right? He went and shot up and killed 11 Jews because of his belief that the Jews were going to control and bring in illegal immigrants into our country. Or just in December of 2021, we had a terrorist fly from London to a synagogue in Colleyville, Texas. Why? Because he believed that Jews were so powerful that they could get another terrorist freed from prison. Those are the types of examples of anti-Semitism that we are experiencing today in the United States.
And President Joe Biden and his White House administration recently announced the first ever U.S. national strategy to counter anti-Semitism. We are wrapping up our interview on this edition of Political Update on Atlanta News First with Dove Wilker, the regional director here in Atlanta of the American Jewish Committee. Final thoughts. What do you hope this measure will accomplish, and what are the next steps that you'd like to see implemented?
So first and foremost, thank you for bringing this to your audience's attention. This is one key way for us to be able to disrupt anti-Semitism by increasing awareness of what it is. Second, Congress should make it into a law. This strategy is very important, and we can't diminish that. And at the same time, we ask Congress to act, to enshrine these efforts into law and to fund them appropriately. And last, and most importantly, we need everyone to follow up on this strategy. The White House can't do this alone. The Jewish community can't do this alone. Government can't do this alone. We need business. We need civic. We need educators. We need influencers. We need everybody to take this blueprint and do their part to confront bigotry and to embrace cultures of respect in our society.
And these are issues that we will continue to cover here in Atlanta News First as we continue to bring you the most comprehensive coverage of national political news, events, as well as how they tie into Georgia and Metro Atlanta. Thanks to Dove Wilker, Regional Director of the American Jewish Committee. Thanks to all of you for watching this edition of Political Update here on Atlanta News First.
Thank you, Tim.